Hi, I'm Lazar Williams here with Mrs. Brown, Miss Templeton, and Mrs. Birch, and we're just going to debrief on an instructional round of watching UFLI.
So does one of you want to start? Like maybe your general overall impressions of the lesson?
Overall, it kind of gave me a warm, fuzzy feeling that we were going back and hitting the essentials that we really, truly needed to be hitting. The kids knew where, like, the vowel patterns they knew the rules for the vowel patterns. They knew when to use OU and OW, and that was kind of comforting to know that those were some good things that were coming through. I also liked how at the beginning of her lesson, she started off as a review of the vowel teams and diphthongs review. So I really liked how she reiterated words from the past back into the new lesson, and I like that a lot.
Yeah, that is part of UFLI it has a lot of, you'll see the same concepts, there's a lot of spiral. So that's what's good about it, is they don't expect you to master it. Like if we do OU and OW today, it's not expected to be mastered for at least a couple more weeks, because they will continue bringing it up.
And that's definitely needed, that repetition, especially for like some of our lower language learners who are struggling with that, but just anyway, just to get that practice. So I really did like how there was that chance for them to still obtain practice. I like that a lot. They also reviewed the words from the day before. So even though they were OU and OW words, along with the other ones, they still went back and quickly, and it went pretty fast. How that review went, and I like that as well.
Yeah, I kind of had the same impressions. I really did like the way they review, and then they're also like breaking down individual sounds, and having a chance to write it. I thought that was pretty. She kept it rolling at a pace that was, a very good natural pace. That there wasn't any like downtime really. It went fast.
Not in the review part. It did. That part did go really fast. I wrote down some words, but that she would like say the word point, and then they would really sound it out and work on that. And I liked how the kids did that. And they actually either had pencil or whiteboard and markers to write on, to be able to do that.
And I know you guys aren't using the curriculum quite yet, but this is something that we're wanting third grade to explore, maybe in small group or even to fill in those gaps. So do y'all feel like some of the strategies that y'all observed are going to be helpful for you?
I think once we can get kind of figured out where our small groups are going to need to be, like what skill set that little group needs to be on, I think that's going to be a really good start. I mean, we've got our groups divided, so now we just need to kind of hone in, and I think after this last round of testlets, that will be able to help us hone in a little bit better on where we still have some struggles, so we know exactly what lessons to start with, because I think that that's good, and that's what these students are missing. We were trained with seeing stars and VV, and that wasn't perfect, but it had a lot of good components. And then we've been trained with several other things, and so it's kind of like UFLI is a good mixture of several different reading components into one. And I think it'll be good to definitely help us bridge some of those gaps.
And go ahead.
I was just gonna say, if you need help grouping your kids or figuring out where they are, we definitely can help with that. Like either give the QPA or look deeper at the testlets and see, we need to encode CBC words or whatever it is.
We kind of have a rough draft of what groups we want, and so we probably need to, I'd honestly like to almost QPA them just to see kind of where they are, because I know my WIN group, I QPA'd them and saw growth, but that was November, the beginning of November. And so, but testlets took so long to give this time.
I still have testlets to give because I've got so many kids out right now.
And so, but that might be a strategy for us to look at here. Definitely.
And I was going to remind you that Sunshine created that document because UFLI is K2, it's K2 curriculum, but she went in and found where the third grade standards were, and so she emailed that to you so you can reflect on that if need be, to see which lessons to focus on, maybe whole group in your class.
How did you feel like the engagement was in the lesson?
That's where I was kind of torn. when it was the review part and it was like scripted and they had to change point and take off and add the for joint, those kids were really with it and they were really
They were
there.
really participating.
I noticed that when she went to the point when they did the roll and read and each child had their own copy of the roll and read words, to me that's where the disengagement kind of started. I even put this took a really long time because I looked at a couple of kids that just stood out, and she went, and that might be something that Gallagher has her doing as well, but like she went and listened to each individual kid, and while she would say at this child's desk, someone from way over there in the corner was playing and not focused on their actual task at hand, or he was trying to entertain his whole little table.
Well,
like,
I mean,
they do,
that's gonna happen. So.
but I'm honestly wondering if that's where you just say, I'm going to pick, 5 kids today
Right.
just to do a roll and
Right.
read kind of thing. And just to pick up your pace, just to be able to say, I knew which ones I needed to hit and miss pretty quickly. And that way there would not be that little disengagement time. I actually saw one of the kids who I knew had pretty well, and he was disturbing his whole table. So I just called him to me, and I was like, come and read this to me, just so that way it would give that class that opportunity to have their chance to practice. Because I noticed that was taking a really a long time.
The passage was the part to me that took a long time. The roll and read kind of didn't take
As long, the passage.
and they were
though.
still pretty much engaged because it was shorter, like going back and forth. But yeah, the passage, I think that lost some kids because they were just probably not on that level.
And UFLI has some different ways they recommend to read. I can't remember all the ways, but it's like choral read it, or echo read it, or if they are ready, buddy read it. But like the roll and reads, they are just for extra practice, so it's not something you have to do. It's just, maybe a Friday thing but she chooses to do it for extra practice every day, I guess.
And
And that makes sense to warrant that, but it almost makes you wonder if you need to just pick, just a certain amount of kids to
Right.
really focus on. I, without even knowing, automatically can tell you my kids, like when we're doing our spelling or our word study lesson, I know which ones immediately I am going to hone in on their work, and then still go listen to some higher kids to make sure, so that would be a area of growth that I might look at, or a suggestion.
Right.
Because like Sharon and I both noticed between that part and the decodable passage is where it kind of
Yeah, I think UFLI gives about 15 minutes for doing a dictated sentence, doing reading some sentences, and then reading the decodable. So there are several things within that decoding time, but they say 15 minutes.
she set a timer before she started her lesson, and that was
That's
one
good,
thing
yeah.
that I really liked, just to be able to keep herself on time task as well. But I thought, I definitely will have to set a timer.
Yes.
That is something that we did with our past lessons as well, so we could keep on track as well.
I think that assessing the students is something that Mrs. Gallagher, the TNTP coach, has had all of our downstairs working on. She's created like a little path of movement
Right.
for some classes, so it's not necessarily each kid at the table, but you're just kind of looking for those gaps. So there is some work there being done.
Oh, exactly, because Miss Gallagher has actually spoken to Sharon and I about that as well. But like I said, it was just the listening to every single one.
Right.
I did have some questions though that I kind of was question marking. I would like to know more about what the students were coloring. They had colors out, but I don't remember what they were coloring.
I think
It was their
they color
rolling.
they color the word they read. I honestly don't even do that with the third graders I tutor, and they love it. I just have them roll, and then if they get 6, they read all, kind of like Linda Mubel, have them read the row of words. I just have them read it. I don't have them color it because that coloring takes so long.
Okay. Well, I couldn't figure out what they were necessarily coloring in their pattern.
They weren't really rolling anything, so I thought
No.
they were maybe just taking turns and
Oh,
shaping.
Yeah,
okay.
that's what I was kind of wondering, because they didn't have dice to roll,
Okay.
and that's why I was kind of like, what, and what were they doing there?
That was my next question. How can we collaborate to, make the time a little bit more effective or efficient for us?
One thing I also had question marks by, it said at the end, after the codable reader, it said teacher went around and listened to the different stories, read their story on their own. But my question was, how do the students who can't read get a chance to practice?
I think if you do choral read as a whole class, then they can practice. But the hope is that they're doing small group, and then during their small group time, if they need CBC or they need, long vowels, they're getting that.
Right.
And then if they do UFLI in small group, which I would recommend, they get that chance to practice on the decodables on their level.
Right. I don't know, that was just one of those, that's when I pulled my little friend. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, come here. I mean, we all know who he probably is.
And
Sorry.
each grade level starts at a different level. So.
Oh, yes. And I loved seeing where kindergarten was.
Yeah.
The kindergarten just like gave me cold chills because
Yes.
that was like so exciting to see where they are. And like last Friday they put writing out in the hall, and we had all of our third graders stop and look at all of their writing. But
It was impressive.
Yes, it is
and so
impressive.
I
I'm
had
taking
told-
pictures for other schools. I'm like, look, this is what kindergartners can
They're
do.
writing a paragraph. They're writing 3 sentences that are
Yeah.
complete sentences with transition words. Okay.
What other highlights do y'all have from kindergarten? Because, you did go see both grade levels.
I liked how kindergarten was spot on.
Okay.
Those kids knew, and I also liked how both kindergarten teachers incorporated the vowel consonant words, word wall, not word
Sound
wall,
wall.
sound wall. I love how that wasn't necessarily a UFLI thing, but they still incorporated it with that, and that was, I thought, really neat to see. And they're already working on their path of movements and those kind of things. So hopefully, by the time they get to us, we're still not trying to figure out how to make letters correctly in third grade. So it was, kindergarten was very powerful. And I'm not saying second grade wasn't powerful, but to see that in kindergarten and to see a first grade where they pick up next year, I was just like, wow, this is going to be very powerful.
Yeah, I really am interested to see how far those kids go,
Right,
because
I know.
if they're starting off this far in advance, it's like, wow, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. It was really good, and I want to thank you guys for allowing
Yes.
covering our classes so we can go do that, because it was very very hands-on, very good for us to be able to see that, since they've been trained and we haven't.
Right.
But we're trying to figure out how to fill in the gaps in our class, so that was very important for us to see that, and so that was really good to see. So we appreciate you all taking time out of your schedules to do that.
Okay, well, thanks again for being willing to film this instructional round video.